anytime an individual is being propagated into the general consciousness of the masses, I am always very incredulous about their backstory. The media runs on narratives, like a narrator. One of the narratives that they love to propagate is that individuals start off in small positions, like AOC, Colin Kaepernick, so on and so forth. And because of their talent, because of their knowledge, they are able to transcend into the general consciousness. Notice AOC goes from being a bartender to a congressional member. But if you look behind the mask, you will decipher the lie. That she has corporate backers, donors, special interest groups. And when the veil is cut through, you look into these organizations that are funding these people, that are giving them prominence, you will notice there is a darker agenda at play. Anyone who is being propped up artificially by the media has corporate backers and is being used as a chess piece for a greater purpose. That is why instinctively, in the beginning, my gut feeling, I have pretty good instincts, I'm very perceptive of these things. And then intellectually, I understood that Greta Thunberg was being used as a chess piece on a grander scale for a greater purpose. I mean, how could a girl who is just a random student, who's not very articulate, not very knowledgeable on the topic, be raised or pedestalized by the media itself? The first thing I noticed, but this is sort of a side issue, but when you dissect things, when you think critically, you look at things through every angle. And then you contextualize your thoughts. The first thing I noticed was that she never criticized China, because the complaint was filed with the UN Committee on the Rights, and it accused Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, Germany, and France of failing to keep their climate change obligations. Now, what you got to understand about activists, she's just a dupe, she's just a moron, she's being used by the powers that be. But what you got to realize is that activists have no end game. Their goal is to cause dissatisfaction. You need victims, you need oppress and oppressors. And then giving money to their organizations is going to cause political activism. But the point is, they have no end game. Their idea is their end game. Because logically thinking, if you wanted to attack climate change, if you wanted to stop carbon emissions or lower them substantially, who is the main perpetrator of carbon emissions? Well, that would be China. Now, what's interesting is China has 5 provinces that are basically their industrial centers. And in those 5 provinces, you have constant red alerts for pollution. But just in those 5 provinces alone, China contributes 30% of all carbon emissions. So if these organizations were actually genuine about their concern for the planet, one would assume they would go after the main propagator, the main perpetrator of pollution itself. And another interesting thing is that Barack Obama recently purchased some beachfront property for $11 million. It is what it is. He's a private citizen. What he does on his own dime is his prerogative. But keeping that in mind, logically speaking, and again, I'm just simply dissecting this, if they really believe their own ideas, in Miami, that would be the first area to go under. Because if sea levels rise, these areas on the coast are going to be under the water first. The bank that gave him the insurance on that was JP Morgan. So even the large banks, the politicians in power, do not believe the shit that they're spewing. So the question then becomes, if they really don't believe their own bullshit, then what is their motive? Think about it. Leonardo DiCaprio flies on his private jet, which emits more carbon into the atmosphere in one session than the average home emits. Also, Al Gore has a home that uses a lot of electricity, which emits more pollution. So the question then becomes, what is their goal? Because unlike the dupes, unlike the activist, they actually have an end game in mind. Well, the first question you got to ask yourself is, how does a quote-unquote organic skullgirl end up becoming Time Magazine's Person of the Year? Well, what you got to look at is We Don't Have Time Foundation. The We Don't Have Time Foundation reported on Greta's strike on its first day. And in less than 24 hours, the Facebook post and tweets received over 2,000 likes, shares, and comments. It didn't take long for at least 6 major daily newspapers, as well as Swedish and Danish national TV interview, for her to be interviewed. 2 Swedish party leaders have stopped by to talk to her as well. So think about this. A random schoolgirl seemingly rises from the ashes. We Don't Have Time gives her the first domino to fall. She's interviewed by 6 newspapers. And then 2 politicians meet with this girl. Well, then you got to ask yourself, what is the We Don't Have Time Foundation? That would be the next logical question, right? Well, it identifies itself as a movement and tech startup that is currently developing the world's largest social network for climate action. The startup has a goal to rapidly achieve 100 million users. So far, it has attracted 435 investors, which are private because it is GoFundMe. The startup intends to offer partnerships, digital advertising, and services related to climate change, sustainability, engage consumers and investors. It is mainly active in 3 markets: social media, digital advertising, and carbon offsets. So what is their goal? Well, like any corporation, whether it's ExxonMobil, Walmart, General Motors, their goal is to create demand. Say what you will about Walmart, but people need groceries. They do not have to artificially create that demand because that demand already exists. That is why they have to artificially create the demand so you will purchase their products. Greta Thunberg is a dupe being used by the corporate powers. I feel sorry for her, and I'll get into why her parents are horrible pieces of shit, but let's get back into this further dissection. So according to estimates in the US alone, the estimated market for carbon offsetting amounts to over 82 billion. The startup offers its users the ability to purchase carbon offsets through the platform's own certification. This option applies to both the individual user of the platform, so it's a social media platform, as well as the whole organizations and companies on the platform. The tech company is banking on creating a massive member base that will enable profitable commercial collaborations. Decision makers, politicians, companies, organizations, states, etc. get a climate rating based on their ability to live up to the user's initiative. The main sources of revenue come from commercial players who have received high climate ratings and confidence in the We Don't Have Time members base. So basically what is being propagated is that you buy carbon offsets. So you use this much carbon. If you buy carbon offsets, whether you're a corporation or an individual, a state, whatever it is, then you'll be offsetting your carbon use. Well, all that money is going towards this social media platform. So create the artificial demand through fear. We don't have time. Very persuasive, right? I can admire the nefarious wording of that in order to get people to purchase it. And I went on their website a little bit and it's a joke. But it's funny how they're offering buy you or your loved ones carbon emission today. Not carbon emissions, but carbon offsets today. So I made the joke to some of my relatives and friends that for Christmas this year, I want some carbon offsets because I'm virtuous. Not because it's a physical product or not because it doesn't mean I'm not polluting. It means that I'm virtuous. It means that I care. Well, I'll go home to my house full of slave labor shit, just like you do, but let's get back into this. The revenue will model, because every business has a revenue model. This is a business, this is a corporation, that's all it is. Greta Thunberg's working for the corporation. Will resemble the social platform of tripadvisors.com, which, good site by the way, I like it, used it a few times. Which with its 390 million users annually generates over 1 billion in profits. They will work with strategic partners such as climate reality leaders, climate organizations, bloggers, influencers, and leading experts in the field. On April 18th, 2008, funded by the page, they had Igor Rintzhogs become the CEO. Now, Igor Rintzhogs is in public relations. This is the man behind the mask. On The Wizard of Oz, you have the wizard